Good day, world. This is Ivan O'Mara. This is going to be an in-depth study of my book, Last Hope for Xanus. A couple years ago, I made a video with my board talking about all the characters in my story and what my story is about. So this is Ivan O'Mara. I wrote a fantasy novel, The Last Hope for Xanus, which is one story told in 3 volumes. So you have Volume 1, Last Hope for Xanus Volume 1, you have Last Hope for Xanus Volume 2, and you have Last Hope for Xanus Volume 3. So it's one story told in 3 volumes, like Lord of the Rings. Obviously, the main character of the story is Tactius II, who is the father of Tactius I, and the main villain is Aratat, who is the father of a fool, and who is the son of Ariad, who was Aratat's father. Tactius I is Tactius II's father. In my book, you have a 1,000-year history, and you have 10 generations. Tactius and Fool were born on the same day, on the 10th generation, whereas Aratat was born in the 9th generation. Tactius I was born in the 9th generation, and Ephesus, the Devil King God of the Mountains, was born in the 9th generation. And all those guys trace back to the first kings of the 1st generation. Tactius II and Tactius I trace back to Xanus I, who was the first king in the 1st generation. And Aratat the Fool trace back to the 1st generation, the first wolf king, who was Arioch. And Ephesus traces back to Elodus, who was the first king. However, in my original draft, when I wrote my Last Hope for Xanus story, my file got deleted when I rewrote my book, obviously a good half of my book, I forgot to mention the information of Elodus. So when I go over Volume 3, I'll be fixing it up and adding that information about Elodus, who is what Ephesus's great grandfather, who was the first king, Elodus. Is Xanus a big world, Ivan? Xanus is a pretty big world when you read the book, but it's not on the same level of depth like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. Lord of the Rings, you have Middle-earth, you have all those locations, all those landscapes. For Game of Thrones, George R. R. Martin's Game of Thrones, you have the 7 kingdoms of Westeros. So Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings have richer, deeper world building than my Last Hope for Xanus book, obviously. The Last Hope for Xanus also has amazing world building too, when you read the book, obviously. In my story, you have two kingdoms. You have the Northern Kingdom, the north, and you have the Southern Kingdom, the south, which is also called the Upper Lands for the north and the Lower Lands for the south, obviously. And the people of Xanus, they live in the Northern Kingdom, which is Xanus, which is known as the Heavenly Kingdom. It's a beautiful kingdom. The north is holy and pure, whereas the south is cursed, obviously. Whereas in the south, you have the land of Barak. That's where the devil wolves live in Barak. And you have Saphius, where the Saphians live. Saphius is known in the land of the blacksmiths. That's where the Saphians live. Like, for example, you have Cornelius, Eli, Job, Lithia, Mary, Bel. All those characters in my book, they're Southerners. They live in Saphius, the blacksmith city. You have Cyrus, the land of the farmers, which is a farmland, and Sirius and Papyri, they come from Cyrus, obviously, in my story when you read the book, obviously. The wolves in the south are known as the double wolves of Barak, or the master wolves, or the double wolves, or the wolves of Barak. There's many different terms that the human characters in my story call the double wolves. And the bats are also known as the demon bats, who live in the Gilead City caverns. That's where Ephesus and the bats live, in the Gilead City caverns, and their territory is the Gilead Mountains. The Northern Kingdom is Tactius' territory. The Southern Kingdom is Aratat's territory. Even though the Southerns who live in Sirius and Cyrus and Saphius live in the south, they know Aratat is the Devil Wolf King of the south. And the Gilead Mountains and the Gilead city is Ephesus territory. He is the king bad of the mountains. Tachys is the prince of the north. Aratat is the king of the south. Faful is the prince of the south. And in the mountain regions in the south, Ephesus is the king of that territory. That's how my world building works for my story. The humans who live in the north are known as Northerns or Xanians. The Southerns who live in the south are known as Southerns or Syrians and Saphians. Whereas the wolves are known or called the Devil Wolves of Rak, or the Wolves of Rak, or the Master Wolves. There's many different terms I call the wolves in my book when you read the story. In my story, the Northerns and the Southerns do not like each other. They're not the bestest of friends, as the Southerns are not welcome in the North, and the Northerns also not really welcomed that well by the Southerns, obviously. But the Northerns in my story have authority over the Syrians and the Saphians, which goes back to the descendants. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spoil the story for you. But the Southerns and Northerns obviously do not like each other when you read my book. The Northerns are known as higher class people, the Southerns are known as lower class people, and they look down on the Southerns. And the Southerns look down on the Northerns as they see them as arrogant people, as you guys will find out when you read my book. Eli is the leader of Saphius. He's the wealthiest man in the south. Him and his blacksmiths, who's Cornelius, who's the head of the blacksmiths, the captain of the blacksmiths, they forge weapons for the Xanians to pay as tribute. And the Syrians farm for the Xanians as tribute too. Why do they farm as tribute? Well, I don't want to spoil the story for you. You have to read the book to understand my story of why that world is the way it is, why the Northerners like the Southerns, the Southerns like the Northerns. All the answers will get answered when you read my story, my amazing last words in this novel. As you see in this picture here, in this video, you're looking at a world like this for my story when I adapt it to the big screen, obviously. Once I make my money off my book, I'll be turning I'll be bringing my book to life, and you're looking at a beautiful world, something similar to this picture as you see here. So I think this picture is a good example of my world of Xanus. Got some Sarah? This video won't be too long. I only talked for about 20 minutes. I tried to make a 1 hour video, but I don't think I have enough information to talk for an hour. So I'll just do maybe a 20-minute video for you guys. I think that's good enough for you guys. Hope you guys are enjoying this in-depth study of my book, Xanus. You guys already have an idea of my book, as I gave an in-depth study a couple of years ago on my board, obviously. So as I mentioned earlier, the North is a different kingdom than the South. The sun, The atmosphere in the north is not cursed, it's holy, and the sun sets slower in the north, and the moon sets slower in the north. In the south, because it's a cursed territory, and the atmosphere is cursed, the sun and the moon set faster. The sun and the moon set faster in the south, but they move slower in the north because they're two different kingdoms. That's my worlding for my book, Lasso for Xanus, which is one story told in 3 volumes. That's what I'm saying? When you read my Lasso for Xanus story, the wolves and the bats hate the humans. Why do they hate the humans? I don't want to spoil the story for you. You'll see what I mean when you read my book, obviously. But the Northerns and Southerns don't like each other, and the wolves and bats also hate the humans. They hate the humans living in the South, but they really hate the humans living in the North. Why do they hate the humans living in the North? I don't want to spoil the story for you. You'll see what I mean when you read my Lasso for Xanus book, obviously. All your questions will be answered when you read my book. As I believe I wrote a masterpiece, I believe I wrote the greatest fantasy novel written. As my stepmother actually told me that my Xanus brand is #1. And I believe it is the greatest fantasy novel written when you read it. And when I adapted it, basically you're looking at a beautiful world like what you see here, looking at something amazing, and hopefully it'll be an amazing adaptation. Crossing my fingers, obviously. If I do everything right, which I will. In my story, I introduce the ancestors in my story. All I'm going to say, in my story, you have the ancestors of the North, and you have the ancestors of the South, obviously. You have ancestors in the South, and you have ancestors in the North. That's all I'm going to say. As when you read the beginning of my book, you'll notice that there's a face in the sky. All I'm going to say is I don't want to spoil the story for you. There are faces in the sky in my story as you read, but all your questions and answers will be answered when you read Volume 3 of my amazing Lasso for Xanus story. And the answers of the North and the answers of the South are very, very powerful beings. That's all I'm going to say. You'll find out how powerful they really are when you read my book, especially Volume 3. All your questions and answers will be answered, obviously. All your questions will be answered. Is Xanus a long story? Xanus is only about it's about a 200,000 word novel, so you're looking at approximately about an 800 page book. Once it's proofread and edited, you're looking at approximately about an 800 page book. That's all I'm going to say. It's a long story, but it's not as long as Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones and those other novels that you read. But it's still a long, obviously, fantasy novel when you read it. The other lands in my book, you have the Valley of the Blood. The Valley of the Blood is the bridge between the North and the South, and a lot of wars were fought between the humans and the wolves, and also some of the bats in the past, in recent generations. You have the Great Wall of Xanus that protects the Xanians from dangers in the South, like the not the crows, like the wolves or the bats. Tachyaeus and Tacitonius and Cassius and Queen Sarah and Lithius are part of the royal family. They live in the royal castle in Xanus, and they are the royal family, obviously. And you have the forest of Galathea, which is a big forest. It's a cursed forest with 100 feet tall trees. Think something like a Sheik in Star Wars. And that forest leads to the Valley of the Dark. The Valley of the Dark is a valley that's dark. You feel the presence of the evil and of the darkness. And once you pass that valley, you're now in Barak, and that's where Eretat and the Devil Wolves live. You also have the marshlands that leads to Saphius. You can go around the marshlands to reach Saphius, but it's a longer journey, as most people, when they travel to Saphius, they go through the marshes, as you guys will see what I mean when you're reading my book, obviously. You also have the city's edge. The city's edge is a beautiful location at the edge of Xanus that overlooks the river of Tinus. That's where Cassius and Meramis trained Tacitonius and Tachyaeus when they're kids. Whereas the other trainees who are kids who are training in the army, they don't train in the city's edge, they train in the stadium. There's also a horse racing Xanus called Horses X, where all the civilians of Xanus gather to watch the horse races and entertainment and things of that nature. Got some Sarah? You also have the mountains of Gilead in the north. The mountains of Gilead in the north is beautiful. It's holy. It's not cursed. It's a beautiful mountain region in the north in Xanus, and that mountain region leads to the city's edge, where Meramis and Cassius train Tachyaeus and Tacitonius when they're kids. Got some Sarah? As you guys will find out when you read my story, Eli is a very, very powerful, rich man, but he's not as rich as guys like Tachyaeus and Tacitonius and Cassius and Queen Sarah Lithius, as those guys are the royal family from the Holy Northern Kingdom, which is Xanus. They have unheard of wealth, but Eli is obviously very wealthy too. As you guys will find out when you read my book, he's a very powerful man himself. He's a very, very wealthy man, the wealthiest man himself. Is Eretat wealthy? Well, I don't really describe Eretat's wealth because Eretat's an animal. The wolves don't really associate with wealth in my book. It's the human characters that I associate more with wealth. Just like in Lord of the Rings, the Witch King of Agma and the Ringwraiths and the orcs and everything, J.R.R. Tolkien doesn't talk about their wealth. He only talks about the wealth of the humans, like the elves, Bilbo in the Shire. Bilbo became very wealthy after his journey. 60 years before the start of Lord of the Rings, he became a wealthy man. You guys, the picture, yeah, we get the picture. Yeah, Lord of the Rings, J.R.R. Tolkien doesn't describe the king orcs or the king witch of Agma and what have you, or the goblins. He doesn't really describe those characters' wealth. Whereas the humans, he obviously talks about the wealth and the hobbits and the elves. You guys get a similar picture? Yeah, we get the picture. Yeah, obviously. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed my in-depth study of my Last of Xanus book. That's pretty much a brief in-depth study of Last of Xanus book. That's the in-depth study of my world, the characters, the plot, the story. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this amazing in-depth study of Last of Xanus book. And I hope you guys will enjoy my book when I publish it, when I self-publish it, and I release it for you guys to read. I hope I take you for a ride, and I hope you enjoy my amazing Last of Xanus novel. If I believe it is the greatest fast novel written, in my opinion, as my stepmother did tell me, it's #1. And I hope you guys will enjoy it. And I hope I take you for a ride, and I hope you're entertained from what I wrote down for my amazing Last of Xanus fantasy novel. This is Ivan O'Mara. I hope you guys enjoyed this in-depth study of my book, Last of Xanus. Stay tuned. I will be doing more videos like this. I hope you guys enjoyed this amazing video. This is Ivan O'Mara. I'm signing out, and I hope you guys enjoyed this amazing video from I'm the man. And to all you aspiring writers out there, don't give up. Just keep practicing your writing. That's how you get better as a writer. And hopefully, if you're lucky, you can get published. Whether you want an indie publish or you want a traditionally published, that question is up to, that answer is up to you based on your needs, your lifestyle, and so forth, and what have you. Guys, I'm Sarah. This is I'm signing out. Peace. Hope you guys enjoyed this amazing, brief, in-depth study of Xanus' novel. Peace out, guys.